Hi there. Today I want to talk to you about how to create scatter plots in Excel when given data. So what we're supposed to do is, given the following data, which is temperature and number of ice cream sold, use Excel to create a scatter plot with appropriate axis titles. On the graph, insert a trend line which continues for the length of the graph. Include the equation of the trend line and the value of R, the correlation coefficient. And then after we do that, we're going to write the equation of the trend line, the correlation coefficient, what kind of relationship is there, and then we're going to make a prediction. Let's start with this data, which I've taken the liberty of already typing into Excel. I've got temperature in column A, and I've got number of ice creams sold in column B. What we need to do is simply highlight this data, and we can go to Insert, and we can do Charts. And we want this first one, the scatter plot here. And it makes us a graph. And there's some problems with the graph. For one thing, I've got a lot of empty space here that I don't really need. And the title's wrong. We don't really need a title for a scatter plot, so I'm going to get rid of it. And instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a chart element. I'm going to put an axis title on the horizontal axis and an axis title on the primary vertical axis. On the x-axis here is the temperature in degrees Celsius. And in the y-axis here, I've got number of ice cream sold. So this is looking pretty decent. I think what I'm going to do though is I'm going to want to cut this chart off at 15. So if I just double click on the axis here, these numbers, I can change that minimum to 15. And that looks a little bit more clear. I can see this nice positive trend here. Speaking of trends, I want to put a trend line in here. And I'm going to actually change this so that the major goes by ones instead of twos, and then I can see all these numbers in here. If I highlight this data and then right click on it, I can select add trend line, and I want a linear, and you can see it's in there, but the problem is that if I move this over just a little bit, that it stops short of the whole graph. Now there's a couple of solutions to that. I can either modify my axis, which is what I'm going to do, or if I didn't want to do that, I could extend this line outwards. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me show you how to do that. If we did forecast here, I just double clicked on the trend line. And I want to go up from 26 to 27, I want to forecast 1 period forward. And then I want to go 2 periods backwards. And that's going to hopefully extend my data, which it did. You'll notice that it automatically updated this thing. That's kind of annoying, so we can just change it by formatting the axis and saying, hey, just stop at 27. And then the trend line goes for the entire length of the graph. So we were supposed to do a few things here. We're supposed to create a scatter plot with appropriate axis titles. I think we did that. On the graph, insert a trend line which continues for the length of the graph. We did that. Include the equation of the trend line and the value of R. So to get the trend line equation, I'm going to double click on it again, and there's this on the bottom of the screen under Format Trend Line. I can choose to display the equation on the chart, and you can just basically move that wherever you want. I usually like to bold it and maybe make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to read. So we are supposed to put the equation of the trend line and the value of R. Now there's not an option for that, so if we want that value of R, we're going to have to use an Excel command to figure it out. And what I usually do is I just do equals CORREL Coral, that's the correlation coefficient. And all you got to do from here is highlight the first column, comma, the second column, and you don't want to include the titles. The correlation here is 0.93069, so right here in the equation, if I just double click in there, I can edit it. So if I just hit enter, I want to say R equals 0.931 if we're rounding that to 3 decimal places. And that's it. That's what a good scatter plot looks like. And we can use that to answer the questions. So the first question is, what's the equation of the trend line? Well, there it is. It's y equals 4.9375x minus 53.188. Write the correlation coefficient. That's just r equals 0.931. What kind of relationship is there between the two variables? Well, since that r value is positive and greater than 0.85, we would say this is a strong positive relationship. That's what that value of r tells me, that it's a strong positive relationship. And linear. It looks like a straight line. Strong, positive, and linear. The last thing it asks us to do is predict the number of ice creams sold when the temperature is 26 degrees. I've got 26 on here, and I can use this equation to figure it out. So right here, I'm simply going to do equals 4.9375. I'm going to multiply by 26 degrees. So I'm going to plug in a 26 instead of x, and I'm going to subtract off 53.188. And it's going to correct it for me because I forgot my multiplication sign, so it's going to put that in there for me, which is nice. We would predict that this line at 26 degrees is right around 75.187. And that's the answer for these. So that's it. That's how you create a scatter plot, use it to figure out the equation of the trend line, the correlation, and make predictions with it. So thanks for watching, and good luck.